Hello, Fremont.Church family. I just wanted to check in with you and see how your summer is going. I've noticed for myself that sometimes when summer comes, what happens is the rhythms and routines of life they get interrupted. And for me, sometimes that means the spiritual practices that I've been cultivating, they can get interrupted too. And I have to just be extra intentional about connecting with God and doing the things that have helped me draw closer to Him and to the ones He's put in my heart, my neighbors, the people that I've been praying for, right? And so I just wanted to check in and remind us of some of the things that God has been showing us as we've gone through this discipleship pathway. He's been showing us as a church. And if you're anything like me, just to help recalibrate and get back on track with some of these things. The first one's the Missional Equipping Gathering. I have absolutely loved that time. We were doing it every or 2 times a month, and then we kind of took the summer off because people are all over the place. But I've really missed it. I've missed hearing the stories of what God is doing. I miss being reminded and encouraged towards these practices that we were seeing God do just incredible things through. And so we're going to start the Missional Equipping Gathering back up on August 28th, right after church, and then we'll get back to it 2 times a month so that we can get back into that rhythm together. I also want to remind you about blessed rhythms, because this is something that it didn't fall off my radar, but it wasn't as much a focus for me over these summer months as I wanted it to be. And so I just want to remind you that the blessed rhythms, things that we can be doing every day to help us draw close to Jesus and build those bridges relationally with the people we're praying for. And the first one is just that, beginning with prayer. One of the things that I love about Discipleship Pathway is it calls us not to just pray, but to extraordinary prayer and fasting. Extraordinary prayer and fasting, meaning not ordinary. Like whatever is ordinary, kick it up a notch. So here's the question I'm asking myself this week. What did ordinary prayer and fasting look like last week? And how can this week I kick it up a notch? And so maybe you ask yourself that same question, and maybe you take an extra hour this week to pray, or maybe take an extra meal to fast so that you can pull away from the normal routines of life and just focus on the Lord and what He's up to. The other thing about prayer is that we made a goal this year in 2022 to do 500 prayer walks as a congregation. I actually think we've probably done that already, but how do we report that? Maybe you don't know this, and so I wanted to let you know that we do have a way for you to record your prayer walks. It's actually in this email. There's a link for you to go do that. And maybe you've done dozens of prayer walks and you've never recorded them. And so go ahead and do that. Record all your past ones as well. If you're like, well, I know I've done at least 10, then throw 10 in there, right? Because I want to make sure that we are highlighting prayer walking, whether it's your neighborhood or your workplace or your school, or maybe it's for us, baseball has been a big thing for our lives, and coaching my son's baseball team, and it's walking around the field and praying before, praying in the car on the way to the baseball practice or game, those types of things. And so we'd love for you to record those. Let us know how many you've been doing. And then each week, we're going to make sure it's prominent in our email so that you can be reminded to prayer walk and be reminded to record those prayer walks. So that's the B in Blessed Rhythm. The L is for listen. As we prayer walk, we're listening for God. As we're having conversations, we're asking God, hey, show me how you're at work in this person's life. And we listen to other people, and we might see how Jesus is working in their life and in their story. And we truly listen and get to know them. The third one, the E, is for eat, my favorite one. We know that Jesus did so much ministry around a meal. And that's true for us too. We know that community is built up over a meal. So if you had opportunities to have a barbecue or meet somebody for coffee, and you have opportunities to do that this month, to just plan to have people over or go out to eat or whatever it is, make sure that you're sitting around the table developing those relationships over conversation. The first S is for serve, right? And we serve others because that's what you do when you're in a relationship with people. You serve together. Maybe there's opportunities for you to invite the people that God has put on your heart to serve with you, because that is a huge way to build just trust, and you're doing something meaningful together. But also let people serve you. Relationships aren't one-sided. If we're truly trying to build deep, rich relationships, then we've got to let other people serve us too. And the last one is story. You know, when you get to know somebody and as a relationship deepens, what's important to somebody can't be hidden. It comes out. And if Jesus is the most important thing, the most important person in our life, over time, that's just, we can't hide that, right? It'll be obvious in some way. And so I think people are going to ask a lot of questions. And when those questions come, we're ready with the stories about how God has done incredible things in our lives. And we're ready to share God's story, through Scripture. Invite them to say, hey, would you ever be interested in a Discovery Bible study with me? And that may come 2-3 years down the road, but we're always spiritually ready to share the stories. So those are blessed rhythms. I just wanted to remind you of that. I wanted to remind you especially of extraordinary prayer and fasting and prayer walks, because it is the foundation for all we do. We want to see a movement of God, right? Not something I can do, not something that you can do in your own strength, but only something that Jesus can do. And so let's get back in those rhythms. If you, like me, have struggled to keep consistency in those rhythms, and go into the fall with just a really great head start on this next season and seeing what God is up to. And the last thing I want to say in closing is to remind us that faithfulness equals success. I can't cross the finish line for somebody else. I can't save anybody's soul. And that's not what we're trying to do here. We're trying to be faithful to these practices, to these blessed rhythms that God has revealed to us, knowing that He is going to use those. That our job is to be faithful, and He is going to change lives. And if we're faithful over time, we're going to see amazing things that God is going to do. So I want to encourage you with that. Please know that I'm praying for you as you're following Jesus, and that we are in this together. And so as you go about the rest of your day today, spend some time with the Lord, do a little kind of heart check and see where you're at with all of this. And then let's rededicate ourselves to continuing to chase after Jesus and what He is showing us this year.